The data sigil flickers again, and the chronicle inhales as if drawing breath through rusted lungs. In the aftermath of that unanswered question, the Imperium moves on, as it always does, grinding doubt beneath ritual and calling it faith. On shrine worlds choking with incense, priests preach the Emperor's constancy while quietly omitting certain names from their sermons. Captain Titus becomes one such omission. To the faithful masses he is legend, a half-remembered exemplar of duty. To the learned, he is an absence in the archives that should not exist. Yet among the soldiery, among those who have seen the void stare back, whispers persist. They speak of a space marine who does not age as others do, whose gaze carries the weight of too many endings. The chronicle notes that belief is strongest where certainty has already died. In the stratagem of a battered battle barge, veteran officers argue beneath a hololithic star map riddled with dead systems. They speak of compliance, of doctrine, of necessity. One voice, old, brittle, with oddmetic strain, questions whether victory achieved through unknowable means can still be called righteous. Another counters that righteousness is a luxury the Imperium can no longer afford. Captain Titus stands silent at the edge of the chamber, helm mag-locked at his side. He listens as if these arguments are echoes he has heard before, perhaps centuries ago. When asked for counsel, he offers none, only a single observation: the enemy will come from the blind vector. This prediction is logged, verified, and later censored when it proves catastrophically accurate. The officers commend his foresight. None ask how he knew. The chronicle drifts downward into the holds where common soldiers sleep among the thrum of reactors and the stink of oil. A guardsman kneels before a chipped aquila, murmuring prayers taught by a mother long turned to ash. He has seen Titus pass through the corridors, a towering silhouette framed by lumen glow. In that moment, the guardsman felt hope and fear in equal measure. For if such angels walk the stars, why does the galaxy continue to scream? The chronicle records that doubt spreads not through blasphemy, but through unanswered questions. Chaplains respond with stricter rites, harsher penance. Faith becomes brittle. Where once belief burned, now it calcifies, cracking under the weight of contradiction. Within the ecclesiarchy's upper echelons, sealed councils convene. Cardinals argue over omens and interpretations of sanctioned visions. Some claim Titus is proof of the Emperor's continued intervention, a sign that humanity is not abandoned. Others fear he represents deviation, a miracle that did not pass through proper channels. A red-robed adept produces a forbidden transcript, reports of warp exposure without corruption, of temporal inconsistencies surrounding Titus's deployments. The chamber falls silent. To acknowledge such anomalies is to admit the Imperium does not fully understand its own saviors. The transcript is burned, its ashes scattered into vacuum. Officially, the matter is resolved. Unofficially, watchers are assigned, and knives are quietly sharpened behind smiles of devotion. The narrative bends toward the Inquisition, whose shadow stretches across all truths. An Ordo Hereticus cell compiles fragments, battle logs, witness accounts, psyker testimonies that end in screams. They find a pattern not of rebellion, but of recurrence. Titus appears at pivotal moments where history threatens to fracture beyond repair. One inquisitor suggests he is a corrective mechanism, an unconscious agent of some higher equilibrium. Another recoils at the implication, insisting that only the Emperor may shape fate. The argument ends when a third voice asks the forbidden question: what if the Emperor's will is no longer singular? The chamber records a single gunshot. The investigation continues, now under stricter silence. On a world reclaimed from the warp, Titus walks among survivors huddled in the ruins of their former lives. They bow, weep, reach for him, as if proximity might cleanse their sins. He tells them nothing of salvation. Instead, he orders fortifications built, evacuation routes planned, defenses prepared for a war yet to arrive. A young priest challenges him, citing Holy Writ that promises deliverance through faith alone. Titus regards the priest for a long moment and replies quietly that faith without action is merely hope waiting to die. The priest recoils, shaken not by the words, but by the certainty behind them. Later, that same priest records doubts in his personal catechism, doubts that will one day condemn him. The chronicle darkens further as political shadows lengthen. A High Lord's envoy arrives bearing commendations and covert instructions. Titus is to be reassigned, placed far from certain fronts, honored into irrelevance. The envoy speaks of stability, of perception, of the danger of singular symbols in a fracturing Imperium. Titus accepts the orders without protest. That night, however, astropathic relays register unauthorized transmissions, warnings sent to systems not yet under threat. When questioned, the envoy denies knowledge. The chronicle notes that within weeks, those very systems come under assault, yet are prepared. Someone has disobeyed for the sake of survival. Someone always does. In the quiet between wars, Titus is observed alone within the ship's chapel, standing before an unlit altar. He does not kneel. He does not pray. Auspex readings spike, then normalize. A servitor records a murmur words not matching any known litany. Linguistic adepts later identify fragments of High Gothic interwoven with something older, stripped of reverence and command alike. It sounds less like worship and more like remembrance. When the recording is reviewed, entire seconds are missing, as if reality itself chose discretion. The chronicle annotates this moment with unusual restraint, stating only that not all faith is directed upward. The final revelation comes not in fire, but in paper and seal. A recovered datavo, thought lost since the Great Crusade, is decrypted at catastrophic cost. Within lies a proto-record, predating the Codex, referencing an experimental doctrine warriors shaped not merely by gene seed, but by iterative destiny, reforged across eras to correct existential threats. The designation is incomplete, but a name repeats in archaic script, altered yet recognizable. As alarms sound and purge orders cascade, the chronicle ends this section on a single devastating implication. Captain Titus may not be a man preserved by fate, but a function reborn by design. And if that is true, then somewhere, someone once decided that the Emperor's blade must remember how to cut the future itself. The chronicle resumes beneath a dying star whose light arrives already exhausted, stretched thin by distance and deceit. Around it, 1,000 ships burn incense and ammunition in equal measure, their crews praying to engines that scream like wounded beasts. Faith decays quietly here, not in screams, but in glances that linger too long on empty shrines. A confessor records his final testament as the star gutters, admitting that he no longer knows whether his prayers ascend to the Emperor or simply echo within his own skull. He begs forgiveness for the doubt, even as he feels it spreading, an invisible contagion carried on every transmission, every casualty report. The chronicle notes that belief does not die when disproven, but when it is forced to explain itself too often. Captain Titus stands upon the observation deck of a strike cruiser, watching the star collapse inward. The light paints his armor gold, then red, then nothing at all. He feels the familiar pressure behind his eyes, the weight of futures colliding. Memory presses in from impossible directions. A battlefield where bolters have yet to be invented. A council chamber filled with voices that will not be born for millennia. Titus clenches his gauntlet until Ceramite groans. He tells himself these are remnants of war stress, echoes of duty stretched too long. Yet beneath that discipline coils something colder, recognition. He has seen this star die before. Not in this place, not in this age, but always before something worse awakens. The chronicle dares to suggest that foreknowledge is not prophecy, but recollection misaligned with time. Elsewhere, a choir of astropaths screams in unison as the warp convulses. Their visions fracture into shard saints with hollow eyes, thrones carved from bone, a blade sinking endlessly into an unseen wound. One astropath survives long enough to whisper that the galaxy is folding inward, not collapsing but correcting itself. The word is flagged as heretical and immediately sealed. In the silence that follows, an inquisitor feels something brush against his thoughts, not invasive but familiar, like a remembered oath. He orders the chamber purged and spends the rest of his life wondering why the act feels less like obedience and more like betrayal. War erupts without declaration. Systems ignite in synchronized violence, rebellions flaring where loyalty once stood unchallenged. The faithful fight hardest, driven by terror that devotion itself may be obsolete. A planetary governor executes his own clergy after they fail to produce a miracle, then kneels alone amid the blood, begging the emperor to explain the difference between faith and desperation. The chronicle observes that when belief becomes a weapon, it cuts the wielder first. Across these burning worlds, Titus arrives again and again, always at the fulcrum. His presence steadies collapsing lines, yet leaves commanders uneasy. Victories feel preordained, as if resistance were merely theater for an outcome already written. Within the librarium of a shattered fortress monastery, a lone archivist pores over forbidden strata of history. He cross-references the proto-record with half-erased Crusade-era logs and finds alignment too precise to dismiss. The same tactical anomalies, the same temporal distortions, the same name, altered but persistent. As realization dawns, the archivist laughs a dry, broken sound, because the truth is elegant in its horror. Titus is not singular, he is iterative, a pattern. Each age forges its own blade, tempered by memory encoded deeper than gene seed, deeper than soul. When the archivist attempts to transmit his findings, the data corrupts itself, rewriting into prayers. He understands then that some truths are self-defending. The confession of a dying sister of battle surfaces amid the chaos. Mortally wounded, she admits that she once saw Titus bleed, and the blood burned with light before fading into nothing. She believed it a miracle, proof of sanctity. Now she wonders if it was a flaw in reality briefly exposed. She prays for forgiveness not for doubt, but for obedience. Her last vision is of a vast forge beyond time, where forms like Titus are shaped not by hands, but by necessity itself. The chronicle marks her testimony as unreliable, then copies it 12 times into sealed vaults, as if afraid to let it vanish. A confrontation finally comes, quiet and devastating. In the depths of a null-field sanctum, Titus faces those who would unmake him. They accuse him of heresy without corruption, of loyalty without permission. He does not resist. He listens. When asked what he serves, he answers after a long pause. Continuity. The word fractures the chamber's wards. For an instant, everyone present glimpses a galaxy rebooting itself through fire, over and over, each cycle refined by survivors who should not remember. The sanctum collapses. No bodies are found. Only a mark burned into the floor. A sigil older than the Imperium, shaped like a blade crossing a circle that has no end. In the aftermath, history stutters. Records contradict themselves. Entire crusades appear retroactively altered, catastrophes narrowly averted by unknown forces. The faithful sense something amiss but cannot articulate it. The Emperor's life feels unchanged, yet subtly redirected, like a river guided by unseen channels. Titus is reported lost, then active, then classified beyond clearance. The chronicle admits a rare uncertainty. If the Imperium has always relied on hidden mechanisms to survive, can faith remain pure once the machinery is revealed? The final entry is not a record, but an awakening. Somewhere beyond time, a forge stirs. A blade remembers its edge. Captain Titus opens his eyes in a place with no stars, only potential. He understands now not chosen, not cursed, but preserved across eras as the Imperium's last correction against extinction. The chilling truth settles like ash. The Emperor did not create Titus to win wars. He created him to ensure the galaxy never learns how close it comes to ending. The void hums with tension, a cathedral of silence stretching between distant suns. On the bridge of a battle barge, Titus watches the orbiting ruins of a hive world trembling beneath the weight of its own sins. He hears the creak of ceramite, the faint hiss of repressurizing conduits, and beneath it all, the slow heartbeat of inevitability. Pilots whisper prayers to saints long forgotten, their voices swallowed by vacuum and the distant roar of engines. Each decision, each calculated strike, ripples outward like a contagion through the warp, reshaping the fates of billions who will never know the shape of their salvation or doom. Titus closes his eyes, recalling the battlefield of Sarina Prime, where brothers fell and rose again, reshaped in memory more than in flesh. War is never over, he thinks. It only waits for the next hand to tremble. On the scarred surface below, a planetary governor kneels among the dead, his robes spattered with ash and blood. He recites the Emperor's litany, but each word tastes of betrayal. Reports from the front lines contradict one another, evidence vanishing before it can be catalogued. Inquisitorial agents whisper that the planet is tainted, not by heresy, but by revelation truths that cannot exist within sanctioned history. He recalls the faces of his clerics, those who once carried hope like banners, now hollow-eyed and twitching with uncertainty. Titus has walked these streets before, unseen, altering outcomes that history refuses to acknowledge. The governor's heart tightens. Faith is a sword, doubt is a wound. And he feels deep in marrow that both will break him before salvation arrives. In the cathedral of a spaceport fortress, battle brothers maintain silent vigil. Their ceramite glints in dim illumination, stained with residue of countless campaigns. Among them, veterans whisper of Titus as both savior and anomaly, a living chronicle that obeys no command but the rhythm of war itself. Memories surface, each engagement a litany of broken oaths and unrecorded miracles. One recalls the siege of Dorviles, where the enemy fled before even meeting his blade, leaving corpses arranged in impossible symmetry. Another remembers the psychic screams that bent reality around his squad, yet left Titus untouched. These recollections weigh like chains. The veterans cannot reconcile admiration with fear. The Chronicle admits that the Imperium has always required heroes to be unknowable. In silence, they wait, knowing the calm is never permanent, and that when it ends, the galaxy itself will tremble. The warp stirs with restless hunger. Astropaths convulse in unison, visions of twisted suns and rivers of fire flooding their minds. A novice feels an alien presence, not malevolent but infinite, a pattern threading itself through every empire, every legion, every prayer. Messages arrive fragmented, echoing across coms with warnings of impossible maneuvers and battles yet to occur. The Inquisition takes note, sealing transmissions and eliminating witnesses. A confession lingers in the archives. The warp is no longer merely a tool of chaos. It has become a mirror, reflecting every action back upon itself. Every betrayal, every oath broken, every prayer unanswered manifests as a shadow upon reality. The Chronicle warns, even Captain Titus may be subject to this reflection, a blade sharpened not only by duty, but by the unresolved guilt of 1,000 worlds. In the corridors of a decayed throne world, Titus walks alone. Memory presses against him like gravitic pressure, every echo of death a whisper of his responsibility. He recalls the first time he questioned the Codex, the first battle where obedience contradicted survival. The ghosts of fallen brothers step aside for him, acknowledging instinct over decree. In the council chambers above, Primaris commanders debate logistics and morale, unaware that each calculation is subtly altered by Titus's presence. His silence is a rebuke, a prayer in itself. Outside, the skies tear apart as orbital bombardment commences. Civilians cling to walls, soldiers clutch bolters, and Titus moves without hesitation, a singular certainty in a galaxy unraveling. The Chronicle records that the line between savior and instrument blurs until the difference is meaningless. A flashback intrudes a ruined forge world, the air thick with molten metal and holy oil. Titus recalls the day a brother questioned his purpose, challenging the morality of survival over order. The brother fell moments later, struck by a warp-spawned monstrosity that appeared without cause or warning. Titus bears witness, untouched, yet the memory leaves a scar deeper than ceramite could cover. Every subsequent campaign echoes that moment, the universe conspiring to test loyalty, faith bending to necessity. The Chronicle remarks that warriors do not break easily, but the accumulation of impossible choices erodes the soul in silence. Titus carries these ghosts as both shield and weight. Outside the memory, the galaxy shudders as if acknowledging that the past itself conspires against any hope of clarity. In a remote sector, a fleet of Exodites and Voidborn mercenaries is annihilated before entering real space. Tactical analysis is inconclusive. Survivor testimony speaks of impossible geometry, enemies appearing where none could have been, and a space marine leading the defense whose armor shines with light from no known source. All evidence traces back to Titus. Historians argue that this is a miracle. Inquisitors label it anomaly. Witnesses call it terror. The Chronicle remains impartial, noting only that the cosmos is beginning to bend itself around a single pattern, an axis that traces back to a single blade, a single will. Somewhere in silence that will is aware, and the universe waits for its action with bated breath. A priest, isolated on a quarantined world, records his despair in a vox log. He describes how prayers fail to summon aid, how the saints themselves seem deaf. Yet Titus arrives without fanfare, executing precision strikes that shift entire campaigns. The priest wonders aloud if he serves a god or a mechanism beyond comprehension, something designed to correct the chaos that mortals mistake for fate. His confession turns bitter. He envies the certainty of the dead, the absolution of silence. He signs off with a plea for forgiveness for the doubt that has consumed him. When the log is later recovered, archivists hesitate, struck by the final sentence. He does not choose salvation. He chooses the future and leaves us to understand only what survives. Chaos briefly touches the galaxy in ripples. Warp storms erupt in predictable cycles, but within them appear anomalies, worlds immune to corruption, legions unassailable, fleets appearing and vanishing without record. One astropath survives long enough to claim he saw Titus standing at the center of reality itself, observing outcomes and nodding as if confirming the sequence. The Chronicle notes this as impossible, yet corroborated by multiple, unconnected sources. Even the Inquisition grows silent, recording only that control may be an illusion, that the galaxy may have always been shaped by a hand that does not belong to any single mortal or god. Fear of revelation is recorded as footnote, but the weight of it presses down like a tombstone on every mind attuned to history. The final entry begins with a whisper from the void. The universe trembles at the cusp of action. Titus ascends a ruined citadel on a world poised for invasion, every step echoing through the minds of soldiers and priests below. Memories and omens swirl together, decisions made centuries apart, consequences converging in perfect alignment. The Chronicle describes the quiet before the storm, a silence so profound it becomes unbearable, pierced only by the distant howl of void engines and the creaking of dying cities. Titus reaches the apex. The sky cracks with energy unseen in any record. The galaxy holds its breath. The Chronicle halts here mid-sentence, as if reality itself waited for the first strike. And in that moment, a single revelation spreads. The blade that has shaped history is not alone, and something older and infinitely patient has awakened to meet it. The void shatters. Titans fall silent mid-orbit. Orbital bombardment halts as though the universe itself pauses to witness what is unfolding below. Captain Titus stands atop the shattered spire of a cathedral, his ceramite glinting in fractured starlight, a single silhouette against the void's roar. Around him, the galaxy quakes not from weapons, not from engines, but from inevitability itself. The enemy erupts like a wound, demon, Xenos, and traitor intertwined, yet the battle freezes in a heartbeat where only Titus moves. Each swing of his blade echoes in the minds of the faithful, the fallen, the lost. Sparks strike his armor, but he feels only the rhythm of purpose. The Chronicle notes, the universe bends toward this act, and yet it does not belong to him alone. Flame and shadow collide in the streets below. Infantry shriek, bolters chatter, Vox cries pierce the air, yet Titus moves with a calm born of centuries he cannot explain. Memories of every battlefield converge 1,000 victories, 1,000 deaths, and every moment of moral compromise etched into him as deeply as ceramite. He steps through the chaos as a man both present and absent, striking with precision, parrying the impossible, and leaving enemies sprawled in impossible formations, as though the universe itself rearranged for his efficiency. Around him, space marines of the first rank move with awe and fear. He is a standard against which all resolve is measured. The Chronicle murmurs that no prayers can match the weight of such presence. Hope is insufficient when confronted by inevitability made flesh. The sky above fractures with energy that is neither star nor void, a light so terrible that psychers collapse under its weight. One among them, an acolyte long attuned to the Imperium psychic network, screams a warning. Something older than the Emperor has awakened to meet the blade. Reality trembles. Warp and real space overlap. Soldiers feel their own memories twist. Relatives they never had. Battles they did not fight, appearing as hallucinations that cut as deep as bolter fire. Titus pauses only once, hearing the echo of a voice he cannot place familiar and alien, praising and condemning simultaneously. His hand tightens on the hilt of his chainsword. The Chronicle notes the oddness of his stillness, a calm imposed not by courage, but by recognition of a universe far larger than he had ever imagined. The enemy commander, a demon of scale unmatched, its eyes like fractured suns, rises from the cathedral ruins, its presence folding the very air. War cry and lamentations merge into a single unbroken howl. Titus advances, every step measured, every breath a calculation of inevitability. Their clash is immediate, blade against claw, ceramite against warp-spawned flesh, reality trembling with each strike. Sparks of psychic energy scatter like supernovas, and the world bends with their fury. Around them, loyalists and heretics alike pause mid-conflict, sensing the encounter as both culmination and prologue. Titus does not roar, does not pray. He strikes because the cosmos insists. Each blow severs more than flesh. It cuts through the timeline, leaving echoes of choices yet unmade, deaths yet uncounted. Amid the chaos, a young chaplain witnesses the battle and records a private confession. He writes of fear, of awe, of doubt unshakable. He observes Titus striking with precision not born of thought, but of understanding that predates the Imperium itself. When the demon strikes back, deflecting each attack with a motion that seems impossible, the chaplain sees a flicker of recognition pass across Titus's helm, an acknowledgement that the enemy is not just a threat, but a mirror. The battlefield collapses into fractured time, soldiers fighting in echoes of themselves, and the chaplain whispers a prayer for forgiveness he is not certain exists. The Chronicle notes that faith dies quietly here, eroded not by heresy, but by comprehension of the incomprehensible. A flash of memory blinds Titus, a forge world, a council of primarchs long dead, a blade being tempered in fire and silence. The realization strikes him mid-battle, he is not alone. Others like him exist or have existed. Across cycles he does not remember living, but recalls nonetheless. Every act, every victory, every correction he has enacted was part of a larger pattern, a latticework of inevitability. His chainsword strikes true, cleaving through the demon, but the victory is incomplete. The presence behind it lingers, ancient and unyielding. Titus's breath hitches as he understands that survival itself is conditional, shaped by forces far older than mankind's conception of divinity or law. The Chronicle observes, even the Emperor may not anticipate the reach of this design. Below, loyalist forces rally, emboldened by the perceived triumph. They do not notice the fissures forming in reality, the air shimmering, the ground bending, shadows moving independently of any light source. Civilians stare into the sky as stars wink out and flare in impossible sequences. Soldiers clutch bolters as if certainty could be seized in metal and gunpowder. The chaplains murmur liturgies of warning, And even the most devout pause at the strange resonance of hope that feels borrowed, inherited from a sequence of victories not fully earned. Titus remains focused on the demon, its bulk fracturing, its reality unwinding with each blow, and yet he senses another presence, the silent architect of events whose patience exceeds comprehension. In the final engagement, blade meets claw atop the cathedral's apex. Titus moves not in fury, but in inevitability. The demon strikes not in hatred, but in recognition. The collision fractures time. Past and future bleed into present. Sparks ignite distant stars. Soldiers in orbit see reality shimmer through their optics. Titus recalls faces he has never met yet feels as brothers. Every strike takes memory and leaves only purpose. Finally, the demon falters, a screen folding into silence. Titus stands, blade dripping with light and shadow. Around him, reality shivers, the universe exhales. And yet, from the depths of the cathedral, a shadow stirs something neither alive nor dead, observing the outcome as if the game has only begun. The aftermath descends as a mournful hush. Smoke curls from ruined streets, and survivors move like phantoms, carrying casualties and memories too heavy for comprehension. Titus walks among them silently, inspecting the damage, feeling each loss, each moment of devotion betrayed by necessity. The chaplains record his presence as a sign of divine intervention, unaware that he himself contemplates the cost of what must continue. The galaxy has been altered, corrected, refined, and nothing about it is simple. Even the stars seem to acknowledge the shift, distant suns trembling in ways beyond astrophysics. The Chronicle notes that silence does not imply peace. It implies preparation, as if the universe waits for its next sequence to unfold. A final fragment emerges, sealed and corrupted, describing a void deeper than any battlefield, a chamber beneath reality itself. Within it, something stirs that predates the Imperium, a consciousness aware of Titus and the lattice of inevitability surrounding him. Its awakening is quiet, subtle, yet the Chronicle marks it with trembling ink. The universe has shifted, not because of victory or defeat, but because the blade has been noticed. The twist remains unspoken, but undeniable. Whatever lurks beneath creation has counted every act, every sacrifice, every prayer unanswered, and waits not to challenge Titus, but to incorporate him into a design far older and infinitely more patient than even the Emperor's vision could conceive. The void is still, no engines hum. No bolt or fire rattles the hollow bones of ruined worlds. Captain Titus stands upon the shattered parapets of a cathedral whose spires once scraped the sky. Now broken and blackened, their crosses bowed beneath the weight of memory. Dust drifts through the air, carrying with it the faint scent of melted ceramite and sanctified oil. He does not speak, does not pray, he merely observes. Around him, the battlefield lies in silent testimony, banners torn, sigils scorched into ash, the corpses of the faithful and the damned alike mingling beneath the indifferent stars. The Chronicle murmurs that this is the cost of endurance, the quiet echo left when war has spent itself and faith cannot answer the questions it once demanded. And yet, the universe continues to turn, indifferent to the losses counted or remembered. A lone remembrancer moves among the ruins, ink-stained robes brushing over scorched stone. He records each detail with meticulous care, noting the angles of broken arches, the way light falls upon shattered statues, the subtle glimmer of dying embers clinging to collapsed pews. His pen trembles as he writes of Titus, no longer the blade of inevitability, but a figure half remembered in the silence. The remembrancer pauses at a shattered reliquary, peering into the void within. He wonders aloud if the Emperor's mercy is merely another battlefield, if devotion itself is measured not in survival, but in the weight of questions left unanswered. Outside, the stars flicker as though listening. In the hushed corridors of memory, he traces the line between hope and despair and finds it thinner than a whisper. Across the silent plains of a conquered world, survivors move like shadows among the ruins. Children clutch ragged icons, veterans limp with hollow eyes, and priests wander aimlessly, chanting words that no longer carry meaning. The Remembrancer watches, noting the subtle distortions of grief etched into the landscape. Wind carries the ashes of battles long fought, and each step forward seems to scrape the soil of history itself. Titus is seen only as a reflection in the eyes of those who survived, a silhouette of inevitability and sorrow. The chronicle records a question unspoken. Does salvation belong to those who endure, or only to those who understand the price paid? No answer comes. Only the faint rustle of banners swaying in the wind, their colors muted, their sigils half erased by time and flame. Within the hollowed shell of a command hall, chaplains and commanders gather silently, their voices muted by awe and fatigue. The war is over, though no one can say who truly won. Each count of casualties, each tally of ordnance expended, feels irrelevant beneath the shadow of what has been witnessed. Titus moves through them without acknowledgement, as if the weight of eternity has condensed into his gaze alone. Memories of every lost brother, every battle, every shattered oath swirl in the stillness like incense in a ruined chapel. The Remembrancer notes that even the strongest faith trembles here, not under attack, but in the face of comprehension, an understanding too vast to bear fully. Silence reigns. The chronicle whispers of the questions that will never reach answer. Can the faithful endure when the purpose of their devotion has itself been reshaped? In the skies above, stars flicker faintly, their light arriving centuries after it was cast, brushing the ruined worlds with ghostly illumination. Titus stands still as constellations shift in patterns that no astrologer recognizes. Ships drift, uncrewed, powered only by the remnants of void reactors, and the echoes of distant battle cries linger, faint and unresolved. The Remembrancer traces the glow across the cathedral's broken spires, noting the way shadows stretch across stone and ceramite alike, as if to link the fallen and the survivors in silent testimony. Here, in the absence of war, there's only memory and the weight of endurance. Each soldier, priest, and civilian carries the story of their own survival, yet the universe offers no guidance, only the faint resonance of questions that will linger like dust in the corners of eternity. A hush falls over the surviving forces as Titus departs into the void, his figure disappearing into the starlight like a memory folding in upon itself. The Remembrancer records his passage, noting how the cosmos seems to inhale and pause in his wake. Across the planets, silence settles over shattered cities and blasted plains, a quiet that speaks of exhaustion, of grief, of the incomprehensible scale of what has been endured. Monuments stand broken, saints are unheeded, and prayers drift unanswered into empty skies. And yet, in the stillness, the chronicle records one persistent thought. The universe has shifted, not visibly, not audibly, but in some subtle way that touches all who remain. Faith and survival are no longer guarantees. They are fragments held precariously against the infinite dark. The remnants of the Imperium gather in isolated halls to mourn, to rebuild, and to record. Every scribe notes with careful hand the names of the dead, the campaigns left uncompleted, the oaths broken in the crucible of necessity. Priests chant without conviction. Warriors stand in silence, clutching weapons whose purpose has vanished with the end of war. Titus is absent from the chronicles, yet his presence is etched into every line of report, every remembered victory, every silent regret. The Remembrancer lingers, pondering whether these records serve to preserve memory or merely to confirm the impossibility of understanding. Questions hang unspoken. If the universe endures by mechanisms unseen, what role remains for those who have survived? Is faith a comfort or merely a tool of delayed comprehension? The pages linger, unfinished, like echoes in an empty cathedral. On a world scarred by orbital fire and demon incursions, the wind carries ash and faint whispers of prayer. Banners droop, splintered poles resting against ruined walls. Survivors wander like ghosts through streets that will never know peace. Titus is seen in fragments of vision, in shadows cast by fires that no longer burn, in the reflections of broken armor. The Remembrancer writes with trembling hand, describing the subtle shifts in light and silence that speak of truths too immense to capture in ink. Even the Emperor's statues seem to weep, their visages cracked, their eyes empty. The chronicle closes in on the imperceptible. The galaxy has endured, but it is forever altered, and the cost of understanding that endurance is a weight that may never be lifted. In the quiet, one final flash of remembrance returns to the remembrancer, the latticework of inevitability, the countless battles guided by forces unseen, the iterative correction that shaped Titus and his campaigns. There is no resolution, only acceptance. The battlefield is silent. Stars glimmer faintly overhead. Faith endures as a whisper, survival as a fragile ember. The chronicle notes that memory itself may be the only witness to the full scope of sacrifice. No hymn can capture it, no litany can explain it. All that remains is observation, recording, and the quiet acknowledgement of endurance's toll. The questions linger, soft as ash. Is it devotion that saves, or inevitability? Can the soul bear witness to what it cannot change? As the final lines of the chronicle drift into the void, the remembrancer leans back, ink-stained and trembling. He gazes upon the stars, the ruins, the broken banners of countless worlds. Silence stretches, filled only with the echo of what has passed. In this quiet, the story's weight becomes tangible, a fabric of memory, sacrifice, and unanswered questions. The universe has shifted, subtly, eternally, and the consequences will outlast all who witness them. Titus is gone, yet his presence lingers, a reminder that even the blade of inevitability leaves traces in the hearts of those who survive. The chronicle ends not with conclusion, but with reflection, an elegy for the enduring, the faithful, and the lost. Stand witness, observer. Watch the echoes of the galaxy tremble. Consider the cost of devotion, the fractures of faith, and the quiet toll of survival. In the silent expanse, remember those who fell and those who endured. Let this chronicle linger in your mind as the stars linger in the void. Engage with the story. Like, subscribe, share, and leave your thoughts in the comments. Be part of the memory, for in the telling, the echoes endure.